Hey guys, Horace here, and today I'm back with another tutorial. Now, it's been a while since I've uploaded, and that is basically just because I don't have the time for it, but I need to make a tutorial for my company, my build team essentially, and I just figured I'd upload this as well. So if you want to get a very advanced tutorial on how to do something pretty cool, in my opinion, then this is the tutorial for you. But basically, the thing that I've always had a problem with is oceans in my custom worlds just look bad. They don't look vanilla. Even when I try to make them look vanilla, they don't look vanilla. That's a problem. So this is the tutorial on how to fix that. Okay, step one is really easy. Just go find a really big ocean. I would suggest something that's about 500 by 500 if you want a really big, large template. But for the most part, pretty much anything can work. I'm going to do a fairly small section just because it's a tutorial. I'm just kind of showing you how to take a section and transform it into a template. But I basically just got a template. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go to warp temp 2, and then I'm going to paste it just like that. Super easy, super simple. And then basically, I just made to make sure that I'm placing this high enough so that the very bottom of the sea floor is, above the thing. And then our first selection is going to be right here. And it's very, very important that you do not go above the top water layer. And obviously you also don't want to come outside of the box. So you're just going to go to this very top corner. You're going to select right there. And then you're going to get a wand and select there. Doesn't really matter. And then we need to make a little bit of a sign of what we're replacing this to. So we're going to just get some random blocks that we kind of like. I'm just going to use wool because that's easy. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to get a sign. And this is important because we want to be able to remember what we're changing the kelp, the seagrasses, and water to. So we're just going to do this is going to be water. This is going to be, let's do just normal seagrass. This is going to be kelp, and this is going to be tall seagrass, just like that. And now, essentially, what we're going to do is we're just going to do that exact thing. We're going to do kelp, and we're going to do 35.2. Tall seagrass is going to be 35.5, and these are just the numerical IDs to blocks instead of typing out green_wool. And so it's just physically faster. And then 35, I think 3. There we go. And then pretty simple. Then what we're just basically going to do is we're going to replace above. This is below, this is above. So we want to place above and then place an ID right next to it. There should not be a space. It should just be right next to the greater than or less than sign. And we're just going to do 35.2, and then we're going to place that same exact block on that, just like that. And it's going to span this all the way to the top. And because I made my selection and the very top of that selection is at the same level of the water, the blocks will just end up being all at the same Y level, just like that. And then I'm essentially just going to do that for all of them. Okay, now that I have all of them, I'm then just going to select the very top layer because that's ultimately all I really need. And then I'm going to replace any water. So I'm just going to replace 9. You can also just do water to 35.1. And there we go. We now have a template. Sometimes there's going to be bubble columns in the water. So you're just going to do bubble column and then 35.1, just like that. And we'll make sure that no blocks are done. And now we basically have a template. I will show you how to use this in a second. And that's what that's going to be for. Okay, now that we have a large template and we have it all done to the same Y level and we know what block is what, basically now the goal is we need to make sure that wherever we have this template basically pasted into the terrain, there's not hard cutoff borders. And you can basically see what I mean by selecting this small thing and then selecting it. As you can see, there's just going to be this really harsh border. It's not going to be like super duper noticeable, but we want to make it as unnoticeable as physically possible. And so what we're going to do is we're going to sort of manually make little buffers in between the edges, essentially. And that could be pretty much as easy as just going around replacing a few blocks every once in a while to make sure that like the edges are just broken up just a little bit. You can still have stuff on the edges, but it should just be as little as possible so that, you know, patterns don't repeat. And that's why we would never want, like, let's say a coral biome in this, because it adds a level of complexity. And it's like, if you see the same, you know, let's say that there's a plus pattern in the coral, and you're seeing, you know, you're flying through this ocean and you see that same exact coral pattern over and over and over, it's just going to look very awkward and just kind of give the game away of like what's going on with the ocean floor and all of that foliage. For the purposes of the tutorial, I'm going to use a small template that has, you know, fairly cleaned up borders, but it doesn't really need to be that big. Again, when you're working at a much larger scale, you're going to want a bigger template to kind of to make sure that nothing is repeated, or it's just very hard to tell that it's templated. Using something this small can technically work, but it might be a little bit more obvious that it's a templated ocean floor with foliage and stuff, instead of just being like just normal. So what we're going to do is we're going to just do this for the tutorial, and then obviously I will have, you can create a larger one for yourself if need be, to kind of just fit whatever needs you have. So we're just going to copy this real quick. We're just going to go to temp 3 real quick, and let's say that there is an ocean that has no foliage, just like this, and essentially we need to put natural foliage. So what we're going to do is we're going to just find the edges, so like right here. So we need to basically go here, and we're just going to drain this ocean. You can just use /drain, but if you want to be a little bit more precise, you can just simply select both sides, just like this, go to no clip or GMSP, and you can just simply replace all of the water with 0, just like that. I would generally suggest removing all of the extra kelp, but you don't necessarily need to, and I'll basically show you how that's done. But basically now we're going to get a brush, we're going to do BR surface, and we're going to just do whatever block we want. It should be a block that's not used in your build, so it should not be, you know, spruce wood, oak log, etc. I'm going to just do 41 because that's a numerical ID for gold block. And then we're going to make sure to G-mask the bottom of the ocean, which is, again, very important. Now, some oceans are going to have a bottom of sand, and some oceans are going to have a bottom of gravel. Whatever the bottom of your seafloor is, or if it's a custom block like stone, or let's say like actual like sandstone or anything like that for like custom terrain, but you still want that natural looking seagrass, then of course just G-mask whatever that block is. And then essentially you're just going to make sure that the brush size is fairly big, and then just going to start placing around the coral just like this. And you can go pretty close up to the coral, you can touch it a little bit, but I wouldn't like go deep into the coral like this to where it's like really overlapping, because that's just gonna look a little bad. And then essentially you just do this. It's not super rocket sciencey, and the main reason why you would get rid of the kelp in an exact like square is like there's sometimes examples of when you're using like the ARCEON clear foliage, you can basically get these like floating like leaves and stuff very similarly to like this, and then that can cause some like QA issues if like you can't have like floating stuff in your build. So that's why you might want to just clear out all of the foliage in a section, and then just go back in with your brush. I'm just gonna make this like a really big brush because I don't really have that much time, and I don't want to waste any of yours. So now we basically have a entire sea floor done. Then what we're simply going to do is you could either do / replace near like 300, and you could do / kipboard, but that's not going to work because we have ourselves a G-mask. So you're just going to do / G-mask, and that's going to turn the G-mask off completely. And then you're just going to replace near 300 blocks away with 41, which is the gold block, with #clipboard. And remember how we copied the template earlier? Well, that's just going to automatically paste onto the bottom of the seafloor, just like that. That's easy. It's super easy. Like this is insane. And then all you would have to do is you can do fix water if you'd like. So fix water, let's say 200. and that's going to just fix the water. You could also just reselect the square, just like this. Let's go to the other side. Doesn't really matter that I'm on the corner for this one, and I can just replace 0, 9, and but that is going to fill the caves as well. So if that's going to be a QA issue, I would suggest doing the fixed water, and that way it won't go into the caves that should not have water. And then pretty much all you got to do is make the selection. I'm going to make a really small selection because replacing above stuff tends to be a little laggy, so I'm just going to do this like small section for a tutorial purpose. But basically then you're just going to gmask water, and then we're just going to remember what was above each block. So 35.5 is tall seagrass, and you want to make sure that you get the lower half, and then there we go. And then you're going to do above tall seagrass, and then half upper, just like that. Of course, my phone decides to go off in the middle of a tutorial because it is now my bedtime. But anyway, and there we go. We now have the seagrass placed perfectly. And then we're essentially going to do that same exact thing with the blue wool, which is 35.5. And then we're just going to do seagrass, but that's a single block. And so we don't really have to worry about that as well. And then all we have to do for the kelp is just place kelp, and it will just start growing if you have your game rule random tick speed to a fairly high level, and it'll just grow like normal. And then all you got to do is replace the 35.1. Make sure to turn off your Gmask first. Let's do 35.1, 35.2, 35.3, 35.5 to 12. And now it's back to the normal block on the bottom of the ocean, whether that's custom, gravel, or sand. Doesn't really matter. Just replace it back to whatever the rest of the ocean is. And there you go. You now have a very, very vanilla, very natural looking ocean bottom. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Super simple, super easy. Peace.